Kevin Morrison stood alone in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall. The room stretched out in all directions, filled with seats that rose up like a stadium. In those seats sat representatives from 847 different alien species. Every single one of them was looking at him. He adjusted his collar and tried to keep his hands steady. 50 years ago, humanity had discovered they were not alone in the universe. 50 years ago, first contact had changed everything. Now, it seemed like it was all about to end. The Zentari delegate rose from his seat. His name was Vexanal, and his blue skin seemed to glow under the hall's bright lights. He was 12 feet tall and had 4 arms. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the chamber. "The human problem has gone on long enough," Vexanal said. "In just 5 decades, they have spread to 72 worlds. They build weapons faster than any species we have ever seen. They refuse to respect boundaries that have stood for thousands of years." Kevin wanted to interrupt, to defend his people, but the rules were clear. He had to wait until the accusations were finished. Another delegate stood up. This one was from the Krell Empire, a species that looked like walking crystals. 3 months ago, human colonists entered the Belcor system. That system was marked as disputed territory. The humans did not ask permission. They simply arrived and claimed it as their own. More delegates rose. Each one had a complaint. Humans were too aggressive. Humans expanded too fast. Humans asked too many questions about military technology. Humans did not respect the old ways. Kevin listened to it all. Some of the complaints were fair. Humans did expand quickly. They did push boundaries. But most of what he heard was fear. These ancient species had ruled the galaxy for so long that they could not accept a newcomer who refused to bow down. Finally, it was his turn to speak. Kevin walked to the podium at the center of the floor. He looked up at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him. "Everything you have said today is based on fear," Kevin began. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. "You are not angry because humans have broken your laws. You are angry because we remind you that you are not the only ones who matter. Yes, we expand quickly. Yes, we build ships and colonies. But we have never attacked another species without cause. We have honored every treaty we signed. We have traded fairly and openly." Vexanal interrupted him. "You have been here for only 50 years. Some species in this hall have been part of the Council for 50,000 years. You do not get to lecture us about fairness." Kevin felt his anger rising but forced it down. "Then teach us. Help us understand your ways. But do not punish us for being young." The words fell flat. Kevin could see it in their faces. They had already made up their minds before he ever entered the room. The vote was called. A massive holographic display appeared in the center of the hall. Each species cast their vote, and a light appeared on the display. Blue meant they supported humanity. Red meant they wanted Earth banished from the galactic community. Kevin watched as the lights appeared one by one. Red, red, red. A few blues appeared, but they were overwhelmed by the sea of red that filled the display. When the final vote was counted, the result was clear. 763 species voted for banishment. Only 84 voted against it. The Speaker of the Council, an ancient creature that looked like a floating jellyfish, announced the result in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "The resolution passes. Humanity is hereby banished from the Galactic Council. All human colonies beyond the Sol system must be evacuated within 30 days. All human military vessels must return to Earth. Any human ship that crosses the boundary after the deadline will be destroyed." Kevin stood frozen. 30 days. Everything humanity had built in 50 years, gone in 30 days. He looked around the hall one last time. Most of the delegates were already leaving. They had done their duty, and now they were moving on to other business. A few looked at him with what might have been pity, but no one spoke to him. As Kevin turned to leave, a small figure approached him. It was Ambassador Krieth from the Valoran Communion. Her species looked almost human, except for the silver patterns that covered their skin. "I am sorry," she whispered. "My people voted against this, but we are not strong enough to stand alone. You should know something. This vote was not about your colonies or your ships. The three major powers planned this months ago. They see humanity as a future threat. This banishment is just the beginning." "What do you mean?" Kevin asked. I mean that they will not be satisfied with pushing you back to Earth. Watch your borders. Be ready." She pressed a small data chip into his hand and walked away quickly. Kevin left the council station in a daze. His ship was waiting at the docking bay. The crew looked at him, hopefully, waiting for good news. He shook his head, and they understood. The flight back to Earth took 3 days. Kevin spent most of that time staring out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity had friends, but they were too few and too quiet to matter. When he arrived on Earth, he went straight to the White House. President Laura Bennett was waiting for him in the Situation Room, along with Admiral Peter Hawkins and several other military leaders. "They voted us out," Kevin said simply. 30 days to evacuate everything." Laura nodded slowly. She did not look surprised. "We expected this. The intelligence reports have been warning us for weeks." Admiral Hawkins leaned forward. "Mr. Ambassador, did they give any indication of what happens after the 30 days? Kevin remembered Krieth's warning. "I think they are planning something worse than banishment. One of the friendly delegates warned me to watch our borders." The room fell silent. Finally, General Sharon Cole spoke up. "Then maybe it is time we show them what happens when you corner humanity." Laura looked at her. "You are talking about Nightfall." "Yes, ma'am. We have been preparing for this exact situation for 15 years. Every simulation says we can win, if we strike first and strike hard." Kevin stared at them. "Win? Against the entire Galactic Council? They have thousands of ships." Admiral Hawkins smiled. But it was not a friendly smile. "They think they know how many ships we have. They are wrong. They think they know what our technology can do. They are wrong about that too. For 50 years, we have been learning everything we can about them while hiding what we can really do." Laura stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over Washington. 50 years ago, we reached for the stars with hope. We wanted to be part of something bigger. They have thrown that back in our faces. The question now is simple. Do we go quietly? Or do we remind the galaxy why humanity survived every challenge Earth ever threw at us? Reezer. 1. Reezer. Kevin thought about the vote. He thought about the red lights filling the display. He thought about Vexenol's smug face as he declared humans too dangerous to exist alongside the civilized species. "We do not go quietly," Kevin said. Laura turned back to the room. "Then we have work to do. Admiral, begin Operation Nightfall. General Cole, start the evacuation procedures, but make sure every colony knows this is not the end. And someone get me a speechwriter. The galaxy thinks they have seen the last of humanity. Let us show them they were wrong." From their monitoring stations scattered across the galaxy, Council observers watched as humanity obeyed. One by one, the human colonies shut down. Transport ships appeared at each world, loading colonists and equipment. The military fleets began their slow journey back to Earth. High Speaker Vexenol sat in his office on the council station and reviewed the reports with satisfaction. The humans were complying. No protests. No resistance. Just quiet acceptance of their fate. "I told the council they would fold," he said to his assistant. "Humans talk big, but when faced with real power, they know their place." His assistant, a younger Zentari named Kelman, nodded. "The last colony ships are scheduled to leave tomorrow. By the deadline, all human presence will be gone from council space." Vexenol smiled. Once they are back in their little corner of space, we can begin Phase 2. The Krell and Thaxians have already agreed. We divide the former human territories among ourselves. Rich worlds. All of them. The humans did good work finding them. On the other side of the galaxy, in a dark room beneath the mountains of Earth, Admiral Peter Hawkins watched different reports. These showed the real picture. Yes, colony ships were leaving the outer worlds, but they were not going far. Each one stopped at carefully chosen positions, just beyond sensor range of Council observers. Phase 1 complete, reported Captain Nicole Hayes. She stood next to a large holographic display that showed the position of every human ship. All colonies evacuated on schedule. All ships in position. And the Council suspects nothing? Hawkins asked. No, sir. They think we are running home with our tails between our legs. Nicole allowed herself a small smile. They have no idea we have 3 times as many ships as they think we do. We? Hawkins nodded. What about the stealth platforms, in position around every major Council military base? When you give the word, we can take out half their fleet before they know we are there. General Sharon Cole entered the room carrying a data pad. Mr. President just gave final approval. We are go for Operation Nightfall. Hawkins took a deep breath. This was it. 50 years of preparation. 15 years of secret construction. All leading to this moment. Send the signal. Begin Phase 2. Across human space, ships that had been pretending to be transports suddenly changed. Panels slid back to reveal weapons. Fake cargo pods separated to reveal fighter craft. Mining stations that had been declared abandoned came back to life. Their reactors powering up massive defense platforms. Day 29 arrived. Council sensors in the border regions began picking up strange readings from the Sol system. The energy signatures were all wrong. Something big was happening, but the data made no sense. A Krell patrol ship was sent to investigate. Commander Zortok expected to find nothing more than humans packing up their home world. Instead, he found something impossible. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been completely restructured. Thousands of asteroids had been moved into a perfect defensive grid. Each one was covered in weapons, platforms, and shield generators. The moon was no longer just a moon. It had been turned into a fortress, with gun batteries that could shoot at targets millions of miles away. Get me high command, Zortok said quietly. Tell them the humans have been busy. His ship tried to probe deeper into the system, but immediately dozens of targeting locks painted his hull. The message was clear. Come closer and die. Zortok retreated quickly. His report caused chaos in the Council chambers. How had humanity built all of this without anyone noticing? The answer was simple, but embarrassing. The Council had stopped paying attention after the vote. They assumed humanity was defeated and ignored. Commander Andrew Sullivan sat in the captain's chair of the UES Vengeance. His ship and 9 others crossed the border into Council space, exactly on schedule. They did not try to hide. They wanted to be seen. Within minutes, a Council defense fleet surrounded them. 50 ships against 10. The Council commander opened a channel. Human vessels, you are in violation of the quarantine. Turn back immediately or be destroyed. Andrew smiled. We are here to deliver a message. You can either listen, or you can try to stop us. Your choice. You are outnumbered 5-1. Are we? Andrew pressed a button and 20 more human ships dropped out of stealth right next to the Council fleet. How about now? No. The Council ships backed off slightly. Andrew began broadcasting on all frequencies, making sure every species in range could hear him. This is Commander Andrew Sullivan of the United Earth Space Force. 50 years ago, humanity was discovered by the Galactic Council. We did not ask to join your community. You found us. We tried to be good neighbors. We followed your laws. We respected your treaties. And you repaid us by voting to banish us like criminals. You think humanity will just disappear. You are wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are giving the Council one chance to fix this mistake. You have 72 hours to rescind the banishment vote. If you refuse, you will learn what humanity is really capable of. We did not want this fight. But if you insist on having one, we will show you what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire history at war with itself. The transmission ended. Andrew's fleet turned around and headed back toward Earth space. The Council ships did not follow. On the Council station, emergency meetings were called. High Speaker Vex Anil was furious. This is unacceptable. We cannot let a single species dictate terms to the entire Council. Supreme Commander Zormak of the Krell military agreed. Their threats are empty. Yes, they have more ships than we thought. But we have 5,000 warships. They have, at most, a few hundred. Numbers win wars. A few voices urged caution. Ambassador Krieth stood and spoke. We know very little about human capabilities. They have been members for 50 years, but they have shared almost nothing about their military technology. Perhaps we should consider their offer. Vexanal cut her off. Consideration is weakness. The vote stands. If the humans want war, we will give them war. The Council voted again. This time, the question was simple. Accept humanity's ultimatum, or prepare for military action. The vote was not even close. Only 12 species voted to accept. The rest demanded action. Zormak began mobilizing the Council fleet. Ships from all three major powers converged on the Sentinel Gate, the massive station that marked the boundary of the quarantine zone. 5,000 warships gathered, the largest military force ever assembled. Deep in Zentari territory, Captain Nicole Hayes watched the fleet gather through the sensors of her stealth ship, Shadow of Earth. Her vessel was small and completely invisible to Council sensors. She had been hiding in their space for weeks, watching and waiting. She activated her quantum communicator, a device that the Council did not know humans possessed. The message went directly to Admiral Hawkins on Earth. Shadow of Earth to command. Council fleet is moving. 5,000 ships confirmed. They are heading for Sol. Hawkins's voice came back instantly. Confirmed. Execute. Phase 3. Execute Phase 3. Nicole smiled. The Council thought they were bringing overwhelming force. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. She sent the coded signal. Across Council space, hidden human assets activated. Stealth platforms that had been placed near military bases months ago came online. Sabotage programs that had been sleeping in Council computer systems woke up. Human agents who had been pretending to be merchants and traders moved into position. The Council fleet left the Sentinel Gate and began its journey toward Earth. Supreme Commander Zormak stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt confident. This would be over quickly. Humanity would learn respect. He had no idea that every move his fleet made was being watched by human observers. He did not know that his ships were flying into a kill zone that had been prepared for months. He did not know that half his vessels had already been marked for destruction by targeting computers he could not detect. On Earth, President Laura Bennett addressed the planet. The Council has rejected our offer. They are sending their fleet to punish us for daring to stand up to them. They think this will be easy. They think we are weak. Let us show them how wrong they are. Admiral Hawkins gave the final order. All fleets, move to attack positions. When they cross the line, we hit them with everything we have. The trap was set. The Council was coming, and humanity was ready. The Council fleet moved through space like a slow wave of metal and energy. 5,000 ships stretched across millions of miles. At the center, Supreme Commander Zormak watched his sensors and felt pleased. Everything was going exactly as planned. How long until we reach the outer edge of the Sol system? He asked. 6 hours, Commander. His navigation officer replied. At current speed, We will arrive at Earth in 12 hours. Zormak nodded. By this time tomorrow, the human problem would be solved. A quick battle. A decisive victory. Then the Council could get back to normal business. High Speaker Vexanol had insisted on coming along to witness humanity's defeat. He stood near the command chair, his forearms crossed. Have the humans made any attempt to communicate? No, sir. Our sensors show minimal activity in the Sol system. A few defense platforms, maybe 100 ships. Nothing that poses a real threat. What their sensors did not show was the truth, hidden in the asteroid field, behind planets, disguised as debris. 3,000 human warships waited. Each one was smaller than the Council ships, but faster, and packed with weapons the Council had never seen. General Patrick Stone stood in the command center on Mars. Around him, dozens of officers watched holographic displays that showed every Council ship in perfect detail. The humans had been tracking the fleet since it left the Sentinel Gate. All units report ready, said his second-in-command, Colonel Lisa Grant. Waiting for your order. Patrick looked at the display. 5,000 enemy ships. It should have been terrifying. Instead, he felt calm. Every simulation had prepared them for this. Every wargame had been won. Now it was time to see if theory matched reality. Tell Admiral Hawkins we are ready. On Earth, Peter Hawkins sat in the underground command bunker. President Laura Bennett stood beside him, along with Secretary of Defense Daniel Cross and a dozen other officials. They all watched the main display as the Council fleet entered the outer system. They are crossing the line now, reported the sensor officer. Hawkins looked at the president. She nodded. Once. Execute Operation Nightfall. Hawkins said calmly. All units. Weapons free. The trap sprang shut. What the Council thought were cargo haulers suddenly dropped their disguises. Weapon ports opened. Engines that had been running cold flared to full power. In seconds, hundreds of warships appeared where sensors had shown nothing but civilian traffic. The first salvo hit the Council fleet before they could react. Human railguns fired solid projectiles at a fraction of light speed. Missiles with quantum guidance systems locked onto targets across impossible distances. Laser batteries that could cut through shields like butter opened fire. 400 Council ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. Supreme Commander Zormak stared at his displays in shock. Where did they come from? Where are all these ships coming from? His tactical officer was frantically trying to update the threat board. Sir, we are detecting over 2,000 human vessels. No, 3,000. They were hiding everywhere. Our sensors never saw them. Return fire. All ships, engage the enemy. But the Council fleet was built for formation fighting, for slow tactical movements perfected over centuries. The human ships darted between them like angry hornets. They were everywhere, and nowhere. Every time a Council ship got a lock, the target would vanish and appear somewhere else. How are they moving that fast? Vexanol demanded. Our ships are faster than theirs. We tested them. They are not using normal engines, someone said. Those are jump drives. Short-range teleportation. We theorized it was possible, but never built one. Patrick Stone coordinated the attack from Mars with cold efficiency. Each human ship was linked through quantum communications. They all shared targeting data instantly. When one ship fired, 20 others knew exactly where to aim to maximize damage. Focus fire on their command ships, he ordered. Take out their coordination, and they will fall apart. Human attack groups swarmed the Council's flagship. Zormak's shields held for almost a minute under the concentrated assault. Then, they collapsed. A railgun round punched through the hull and destroyed the main reactor. The flagship broke apart. Zormak managed to get to an escape pod. As he ejected, he watched his fleet being torn to pieces. Ships that had been the pride of the Krell Empire burned and died. Zentari warships, some of them 1,000 years old, were reduced to scrap. The Thaxian contingent tried to retreat but found human ships already behind them, cutting off escape. Commander Andrew Sullivan led a squadron of fast attack ships. His target was a Zentari carrier that was trying to launch fighters. He came in from below, where their sensors had a blind spot. "Light them up," he ordered. His squadron fired in perfect sync. The carrier's hangar bay exploded, taking the entire ship with it. Captain Nicole Hayes brought her stealth ship out of hiding right in the middle of the enemy formation. The Shadow of Earth was small, but it carried experimental weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Now was the time to see if they worked. She activated the quantum disruptor. A wave of energy spread out from her ship, invisible to normal sensors. Every Council ship it touched suddenly lost power. Shields dropped. Weapons went offline. Engines sputtered and died. "This is Shadow of Earth to all units. I just killed their electronics in Sector 7. They are sitting ducks. They are sitting ducks." Human ships poured into the disabled zone and destroyed the helpless Council vessels methodically. The battle continued for 6 hours. 6 hours of one-sided slaughter. The Council fleet tried everything. They tried to regroup. They tried to fight in coordinated formations. They tried to retreat. Nothing worked. Human ships were simply better. Better technology. Better training. Better tactics. And most importantly, they were fighting for their survival while the Council was fighting because they were told to. By the time Supreme Commander Zormak was rescued from his escape pod, the battle was over. Of the 5,000 ships that entered the Sol system, fewer than 300 survived. Most of those were too damaged to fight. The rest had surrendered. Human casualties amounted to 72 ships damaged and 15 destroyed. 2,000 crew killed. It was a tragedy for humanity. For the Council, it was catastrophic. Zormak was brought aboard a human ship called the Retribution. Commander Andrew Sullivan met him in the docking bay. The Krell looked broken. His crystal body cracked and dull. "I request surrender terms," Zormak said quietly. Andrew shook his head. "You do not get surrender terms. You get to go home and tell your leaders what happens when they try to erase humanity. We offered peace. You brought war. This is the result. This, you cannot mean to continue fighting. You have won. Take your victory." "This is not about victory," Andrew said. "This is about making sure the Council never tries this again. Your fleet came here to destroy us. Instead, we destroyed you. And we are just getting started." Zormak was sent back to Council space in a damaged shuttle along with the other survivors. No weapons. Barely enough fuel to reach the nearest station. Andrew wanted them to limp home, to be seen by every species along the way. He wanted everyone to see what humanity could do. On Earth, news of the victory spread quickly. People flooded into the streets, celebrating. But in the command bunker, there was no celebration. President Laura Bennett looked at the casualty reports. 2,000 dead. Families destroyed. Lives ended. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. Admiral Hawkins did not answer right away. Finally, he said, "We did not start this. We tried peace. They forced this choice. Now we have to see it through." General Sharon Cole pulled up a new display. "We have intelligence on Council military bases in 20 systems. Shipyards. Weapons. Factories. Logistics hubs. If we hit them now while they are in shock, we can cripple their ability to rebuild." "You want to invade their territory?" Daniel Cross asked. "I want to make sure they cannot do this again," Sharon replied. "This victory means nothing if we just sit here and wait for them to gather another fleet." Laura looked at the map showing Council space. Hundreds of worlds. Billions of aliens. All of them potential enemies now. "How long can we sustain an offensive campaign?" "As long as we need to," Hawkins said. "Our supply lines are secure. Our technology is superior. And after today, Half the council species are going to think twice before opposing us. Laura made her decision. Then we continue. But we are not conquerors. We hit military targets only. No civilian casualties if we can avoid them, and we make it clear we will stop the moment they agree to fair terms. Orders went out across the human fleet. The defensive war was over. The offensive war was just beginning, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity did not fight wars halfway. President Laura Bennett stood before the cameras in the White House press room. Behind her, the flags of Earth's nations hung in a row. Her speech was being broadcast not just to Earth, but to every council communication channel. She had made sure of that. The galaxy needed to hear this. People of Earth and members of the Galactic Council, I speak to you tonight after our forces achieved a decisive victory against those who sought to destroy us. The Council voted to banish humanity. When we refused to disappear quietly, they sent 5,000 warships to enforce their will. Those ships are now destroyed or captured. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. We did not want this war. For 50 years, we tried to be part of the galactic community. We followed the rules. We respected boundaries. We sought friendship and cooperation. The Council responded with fear and hatred. They could not accept that a young species might stand as equals. So they tried to push us back into the dark. Laura's voice grew harder. That was their mistake. Humanity has fought for every inch of progress in our history. We have survived ice ages and plagues. We have overcome tyranny and ignorance. We will not be erased by aliens who think age equals wisdom. The speech continued for 10 minutes. She outlined humanity's terms clearly. The banishment vote must be rescinded. The three major powers that orchestrated it must pay reparations. Human territory would be respected. And most importantly, humanity would have full voting rights in any new council that emerged from this conflict. When the speech ended, Laura walked back to the Situation Room. Admiral Peter Hawkins was already coordinating the next phase of operations. How did the council leadership respond? She asked. They have not responded officially. But our intelligence says they are in chaos. The Zentari are demanding Vexanol's resignation. The Krell government is facing riots. The Thaxians are fracturing into regional factions. General Sharon Cole pointed to a star map on the main display. We need to maintain pressure. I have 3 strike groups ready to hit key targets. Captain Henry Marsh will lead the attack on the Zentari weapons foundries. Commander Christine Lewis will take out the Krell shipyards. And Commander Jake Harper will hit the Thaxian logistics network. Laura studied the map. Civilian casualties? Minimal if everything goes to plan. These are military-industrial targets, not population centers. We will give evacuation warnings before each strike. Do it. Captain Henry Marsh brought his squadron out of jump space right on top of the Zentari foundries in the Kelmar system. 5 massive stations orbited a dead world, each one producing enough weapons to arm 100 ships. Not anymore. All ships, target the factories. Ignore any civilian traffic in the area. His weapons officer locked onto the first station. Sir, they are broadcasting a surrender signal. Henry hesitated. Cease fire. Open a channel. 1. The station administrator appeared on screen. A Zentari engineer who looked terrified. Please. We surrender. Do not destroy the stations. 3,000 workers are on board. Evacuate your people. You have 30 minutes. After that, the stations are gone. 30 minutes is not enough time. Then you better start moving fast. Henry watched as escape pods began launching from all 5 stations. His tactical officer counted them. We are detecting 2,800 escape pods. That is most of them. Well, good enough. Once they are clear, fire. The stations exploded in sequence. Months of weapons production destroyed in minutes. Henry jumped his squadron back out before any Zentari defense ships could arrive. Commander Christine Lewis had a harder target. The Krell shipyards were protected by orbital defense platforms and a garrison fleet of 200 ships. But she had a secret weapon. Dr. Susan Park had spent 3 months developing infiltration programs, specifically designed to attack Krell computer systems. Now, it was time to see if they worked. "Deploy the cyber attack," Christine ordered. Invisible packets of code shot from her ship toward the Krell network. The defense platforms suddenly stopped firing. Their targeting systems began displaying false information. The garrison fleet found their own ships identified as enemies. "They are shooting at each other." Her tactical officer laughed. Christine did not laugh. This was war, not a game. "Move in while they are confused. Target the construction bays only. Let the garrison run away if they want." Her ships swept through the system, destroying the massive construction frames where new Krell warships were built. Without these yards, the Krell could not rebuild their fleet. By the time the Krell figured out what had happened, Christine's squadron was already gone. Commander Jake Harper hit 7 Thaxian supply depots in 3 days. Each one stored fuel, ammunition, and spare parts for the Thaxian military. Without supplies, their remaining ships could not operate. The attacks continued for 2 weeks. Human strike groups appeared without warning, destroyed their targets, and vanished. The Council could not catch them. Human jump drives let them move faster than any pursuit. Quantum communications meant they always knew where Council ships were. On the Council station, what was left of the leadership met in emergency session. High Speaker Vexanol was gone, forced to resign in disgrace. The new speaker was a moderate Zentari named Pelthar. "We are losing this war," he said bluntly. "Our military infrastructure is being systematically destroyed. Our fleets are scattered, and the humans show no signs of stopping." Ambassador Krieth of the Valeron Communion stood. "Then, perhaps it is time to accept their terms." "Accept?" a Krell representative shouted. "We do not negotiate with terrorists." "They are not terrorists," Krieth said firmly. "They are a species fighting for survival. A species we pushed into a corner. This is our fault." The argument continued for hours. Finally, a vote was called. Should the Council open negotiations with humanity? The vote was close, but it passed. Barely. Ambassador Kevin Morrison received the message while he was on Mars, coordinating humanitarian aid for refugees from the war zones. Yes, there were refugees. Council species who lived near human targets had been fleeing the fighting. Ironically, many of them were coming to human space, where they knew they would be safe. "They want to talk," Kevin told Admiral Hawkins. "Formal negotiations." "Too late for that," Hawkins said. "They had their chance to talk. They chose war instead." "Sir, we are winning. We can afford to be generous." "Generous?" "They tried to erase us. 2,000 of our people are dead. Thousands more are wounded. And you want us to be generous?" Kevin faced him calmly. "Yes. Because if we are not generous, we become what they feared we were. Conquerors. Tyrants. Monsters." The argument was interrupted by news from the frontier. 3 Council species had broken away from the main government and declared independence. They were asking for human protection. "This is getting complicated," General Sharon Cole said. "If we accept them, we are not just fighting the Council. We are actively breaking it apart." "Maybe that is not a bad thing," suggested Daniel Cross. "The old Council was corrupt and dominated by 3 powers. Maybe the galaxy needs a new structure." President Laura Bennett made the decision. "We accept the breakaway species. We offer them protection. But we also continue pushing for full negotiations." Kevin is right. We need to win the war, but also win the peace. More human fleets deployed. Captain Henry Marsh took his ships into former Krell space to protect the newly independent systems. Commander Christine Lewis established a blockade around Zentari core worlds, cutting off their supply lines. Commander Jake Harper continued hitting logistics targets across Thaxian territory. The war was not without losses. Human ships were damaged. Crews were killed. But for every human casualty, the Council suffered 10. The math was brutal and clear. Humanity was winning. 6 weeks after the first battle, the Zentari Dominion formally requested a ceasefire. They agreed to recognize human sovereignty and pay reparations. The Krell Empire fell apart entirely, splitting into regional governments. Some made peace with humanity. Others continued fighting, but without real hope of victory. The Thaxian collective simply collapsed. Years of corruption and mismanagement meant they had no ability to sustain a war. Regional governors began negotiating separately with human forces, each trying to get the best deal they could. Ambassador Kevin Morrison returned to the council station, but this time he came with an escort of 50 human warships. The message was clear: humanity was here to stay, and anyone who did not like it could try their luck against the fleet. High Speaker Pelthar met him personally. Ambassador Morrison, we accept your terms. The banishment is rescinded. Reparations will be paid. Human territory will be respected. And human voting rights? Kevin asked. Full voting rights, equal to any other species. Pelthar paused. We were wrong. About humans. About what you represent. We thought you were dangerous because you were young and aggressive. We did not understand that you were dangerous because you refused to give up. Kevin looked at the old alien. We did not want this war. Remember that. We tried peace first. You are the ones who made violence necessary. I know. And we will pay for that mistake for generations. The formal treaty was signed 3 days later. Humanity was no longer banished. Instead, humanity was now one of the major powers in the galaxy. Some species welcomed this. Others feared it, but none of them could ignore it. Back on Earth, celebrations finally seemed appropriate. The war was not completely over. Fighting continued in some regions, but the main conflict was done. Humanity had won. President Laura Bennett addressed the nation one more time. We fought for our right to exist. We won that fight. Now comes the harder part. Building a lasting peace. Proving that our victory was not just about power, but about justice. The galaxy will be watching us. Let us show them that humanity can be trusted with the responsibility we have claimed. 6 months had passed since the Council voted to banish Earth. Now Ambassador Kevin Morrison walked through the same Grand Assembly Hall, but everything was different. The seats that once held representatives from 847 species now held fewer than 600. Some species had been destroyed in the fighting. Others had withdrawn from galactic politics entirely. Many had simply stopped coming to meetings because the old council no longer mattered. The 3 major powers that once dominated everything were gone. The Zentari Dominion was reduced to half its former size. The Krell Empire existed only in name, fractured into dozens of independent systems. The Thaxian collective had completely dissolved. In their place, new voices spoke. Species that had been ignored for centuries now had real power. And at the center of it all, whether they liked it or not, sat humanity. President Laura Bennett addressed the assembly from Earth via hologram. Her image appeared 30 feet tall, above the speaker's platform. 6 months ago, this council voted to erase humanity from the galaxy. Today, we stand before you not as enemies, but as partners in building something better. The old order failed. All these Weltarm and Intextrus, it concentrated power in the hands of a few and ignored the voices of the many. We propose a new structure, one where every species, large or small, old or young, has an equal vote in matters that affect us all. Not everyone was happy with this idea. A Zentari delegate stood up. You speak of equality while your warships patrol our space. You speak of partnership while your forces occupy our former colonies. This is not equality. This is conquest dressed in pleasant words, Kevin responded calmly. Human forces are in your space because you attacked us. They will remain until we are certain you will not attack us again. As for the colonies, we are protecting them from pirates and raiders who appeared after your government collapsed. We did not ask for this responsibility. But we will not abandon people who need protection. The debate continued for hours. Some species genuinely wanted to work with humanity. Others resented being forced into a new system. A few simply wanted revenge for their losses in the war. Admiral Peter Hawkins was not at the council meeting. He was on the bridge of the UES Constitution, leading a peacekeeping fleet through the former Krell territories. 50 ships under his command, half of them human and half from allied species. We are receiving a distress signal from the Belcor system, his communications officer reported. Pirates are raiding the colonies. Set course, maximum speed. General Patrick Stone, who had coordinated the Mars defense, now coordinated something more challenging. He was training mixed military units where humans and aliens served together. It was not going well. The problem is trust, said Colonel Lisa Grant. The Valoran soldiers trust us. The Zentari troops do not. They see us as occupiers. Then we keep working on it, Patrick said. In 10 years, maybe 20, the younger generation will not remember the war. They will just remember growing up in a galaxy where humans and aliens serve together. That is when the real peace begins. Captain Nicole Hayes had left military service entirely. After the war, she could not stomach the idea of more fighting. Instead, she joined the diplomatic corps and was now working on rebuilding efforts in devastated systems. She stood on a Zentari world where human bombardment had destroyed a military base but also damaged the nearby city. Reconstruction crews, both human and Zentari, worked side by side to repair the damage. How long until the water system is back online? She asked the engineering supervisor, a human woman named Barbara Scott. 3 weeks. The Zentari engineers are good. They just need supplies. Nicole looked at the city. 50,000 people lived here. Most of them hated humans. She could see it in their faces when they looked at her. But they accepted human help because they had no choice. A young Zentari child approached her carefully. He could not have been more than 6 years old. He held out a small flower, one of the native plants that grew in the area. "Thank you for fixing our city," he said quietly. Nicole took the flower and felt her throat tighten. This is what the war had been for. Not glory, not revenge. For the chance that children like this could grow up in a safer galaxy. On Earth, not everyone was celebrating humanity's victory. Dr. Susan Park stood before a congressional hearing, facing tough questions about the cyber warfare programs she had developed. "You created programs that killed people," a senator said. "Those Krell ships that shot at each other had crews. Thousands died." "Yes, they did," Susan said. "Just like thousands of humans died when the Council attacked us. War is ugly. It creates moral choices that have no good answers. I developed those programs because the alternative was losing. And if we lost, humans would have been exterminated. So you feel no guilt? I feel enormous guilt. Every day. But I would make the same choices again. Because the alternative was worse." The hearing went on for days. Some people called her a hero. Others called her a war criminal. Susan did not care much about either label. She just wanted to make sure that the technology she developed was never used again, unless absolutely necessary. Commander Andrew Sullivan received a promotion to captain and command of his own ship. But the assignment was not what he expected. Instead of a warship, he was given the UES Harmony, a diplomatic vessel tasked with opening relations with species that had never met humans before. His first officer was a Valoran named Kremel, the nephew of Ambassador Krieth. Together, they traveled to distant regions of the galaxy, meeting species that had only heard rumors about the human war. "They are afraid of us," Kremel said after one particularly difficult meeting. "They see us as the species that destroyed the old order. They wonder if we will turn on them next." Then we prove them wrong, Andrew said. Ambassador Kevin Morrison spent his days in endless negotiations, trade agreements, defense pacts, technology sharing treaties. The work was exhausting and often frustrating. Progress was measured in inches, not miles. One day, Ambassador Krieth invited him for a private meeting. They sat in a small room, overlooking the council station's gardens. "You look tired," she said. "I am tired. Fighting the war was easier than winning the peace. That is always true. But you are doing important work. The galaxy is changing. Some species resist, but others see hope for the first time. Species that were oppressed by the old powers are now free. That is because of humanity." Kevin looked out at the gardens. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing. Yes, the old council was corrupt, but we destroyed it through violence. What does that say about us? It says you are survivors. It says you refuse to be victims. These are not bad qualities." She paused. The galaxy needed to change. Perhaps it needed humanity to force that change. The important question now is what you do with the power you have claimed. 10 years passed. The war became history, taught in schools but no longer the defining event of people's lives. A new generation grew up never knowing the old council. Brandon Cole, the son of General Sharon Cole, became a diplomat like Kevin Morrison had been. His first major assignment was negotiating a joint scientific expedition with the Zentari. His counterpart was a young Zentari named Pelnax, the grandson of the disgraced High Speaker Vexenol. They met in a conference room on the council station. Brandon expected tension, maybe even hostility. Instead, Pelnax greeted him warmly. "My grandfather voted to banish your species," Pelnax said. "He thought humans were dangerous. He was right, but not in the way he thought. You were dangerous because you could not be controlled. Devon. 10. Devon. 10. Devon. 10. Devon. 10. And now?" Brandon asked. "Now we are partners. My generation does not care about the old grudges. We care about building something better." They spent 3 days working out the details of the expedition. A team of human and Zentari scientists would explore an uncharted region of space together. It was a small thing, but it represented something larger. A future where the war was just a story people told about the past. Admiral Peter Hawkins retired after 40 years of military service. He gave one final interview before leaving public life. "Do you regret the war?" the interviewer asked. "I regret that it was necessary. But I do not regret fighting it. The council gave us no choice. They wanted us gone. We refused to disappear. Yes, we were ruthless. Yes, we caused destruction. But we survived. And sometimes, survival requires being willing to do hard things. Some say humanity became the very thing the council feared. Maybe we did. Or maybe we just showed the galaxy what happens when you try to erase a species that refuses to quit. Either way, we are here. We are not going anywhere. And the galaxy has to live with that." The interviewer pressed further. "What about the future? Can humanity be trusted with the power it now holds?" Hawkins thought about that. "Trust is earned, not given. My generation won the war. The next generation has to prove we can be trusted with the peace. That is their burden. I hope they are wiser than we were." President Laura Bennett served 2 terms and then retired. In her farewell address, she spoke about the choice that humanity faced 10 years earlier. We could have accepted banishment. We could have retreated to Earth and hidden from the galaxy. Some people argued that was the safe choice. But safety is not the same as survival. We fought because we believed humanity deserved a place among the stars. We won that fight. But winning was just the beginning. The real test is what we build with the opportunity we claimed. The story ended not with a grand battle or dramatic speech, but with a quiet moment. Brandon Cole and Pelnax stood in the observation deck of their expedition ship, looking at the stars ahead. Behind them, human and Zentari crew members worked together preparing for the journey. "Do you think they will remember the war?" Pelnax asked. "The people who come after us?" Brandon considered that. "They will remember it happened. But maybe they will not understand why it seemed so important at the time. To them, humans and Zentari working together will just be normal. Is that not the goal? For peace to be so normal that people forget what war felt like? Maybe. Or maybe we need to remember. Not to hold grudges, but to remember why the war started. The old council failed because they forgot that every species, no matter how young or different, deserves respect. If we forget that lesson, we will just repeat the same mistakes." The ship jumped into the unknown, carrying its mixed crew into unexplored space. Behind them, the galaxy continued its slow transformation. The vote to banish Earth had passed. Humanity had struck back without mercy. But in the end, mercy was exactly what would define whether humanity's victory meant anything. The Council had tried to erase humanity and learned it was impossible. Now the galaxy was learning a different lesson, that humanity, given the choice between conquest and cooperation, might just choose cooperation. It was not guaranteed. It was not easy. But it was possible. And in a galaxy that had just survived a devastating war, possible was enough.